Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first and final session. Welcome to our third and final session of the 2021 Pathways to Law Conference. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lee, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Community Services Committee of the Asian American Bar Association of the Greater Bay Area. Today, we have the law school panel. I'm excited to introduce you to our moderator, Kerry Sherman. Kerry is a third-year law student at UC Davis School of Law, where she has worked as a research assistant, teaching assistant in research and writing, and served on the Family Protection Clinic. Kerry was born in Seoul, Korea, and grew up in both Seoul and Los Angeles. She now lives in the Bay Area, where she'll be working after graduation. Kerry is interested in pursuing a career in privacy law. And now, without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Kerry.
Thank you, Lee. First off, thank you everyone for attending today. I will be serving as the moderator of the panel discussion. At this time, I'd like to introduce our three guests on the panel. Our first speaker is Mario Lopez, the Associate Director of Admissions, Diversity Initiatives, and Community Partnerships at UC Hastings Law. At AABA, he's a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group. Just a little background about Mario. Born in San Francisco and raised in Marin County, Mario Lopez is the proud son of immigrants from Guatemala and El Salvador. And as I stated, he's the Associate Director of Admissions, Diversity Initiatives, and Community Partnerships at UC Hastings Law. As part of his portfolio, Mario oversees diversity initiatives in the Office of Enrollment Management, which includes the California Scholars Program, Diversity Outreach, Leop recruitment, affinity campus groups, and working with students, faculty, and administrators in helping build a diverse incoming class at UC Hastings. Prior to his professional role at Hastings, Mario worked for 10 years in the financial services sector, from 16 to 26, earning his investment licenses and serving on various school, community, and government boards prior to law school. During his time as a student at UC Hastings, Mario served on the UC Hastings trial team, was the fundraising chair for La Raza Law Students Association, and also interned for President Obama at the White House in the National Economic Council during his third year of law school, where he also served in a leadership role as the co-chair of the Legal Professional Interest Group. Mario earned his BA in Political Science from the University of California, Davis, earned his JD from UC Hastings Law, and is a licensed member of the California Bar. Outside of work, Mario is a 9-time marathon finisher, sports aficionado, fluent in Spanish, and enjoys international travel and cooking. Mario, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kerry and AABA, for the invitation today. It is an honor to be able to speak today. I have the honor of representing UC Hastings Law. We are located in the heart of San Francisco in the Civic Center Tenderloin district of our city. We've been there for over 143 years. We're the original law school of the University of California. Today we have 22,000 alums, and they do everything from big law, mid-sized, small-sized firms, to working in the courts, to working in government, and including in the office of the Vice President of the United States of America. So happy to be here today and to be able to answer your questions about the law school application process for all schools.
Great. Thank you so much, Mario. Thank you for joining us. And okay, so our next panelist is Thomas Lee, also representing UC Hastings. Thomas Lee is the Associate Director of Public Interest and Public Service at UC Hastings. He focuses on supporting students interested in public interest, public service, and other nonprofit careers. As a Los Angeles native, Thomas received his BA from UC Berkeley and his JD from Harvard Law School. He has worked his entire legal career in the nonprofit legal services field, including with the Eviction Defense Collaborative, Advancing Justice, Asian Law Caucus, and Asian Pacific Islander Legal Outreach. He has held various roles from fellow to staff attorney to managing attorney. Thomas is excited to be at UC Hastings, helping the next generation of legal professionals make a difference in this world.
Thanks so much, Kerry, for the introduction, and thank you, everyone, for coming today and spending your Saturday morning with us. I think Mario really eloquently put all the great things that Hastings has to offer. I think the law school path in general is one that has a lot of opportunities, and we'd like to see you here at UC Hastings, but I think any law school that you would go to would create lots of opportunities. So great to see you all today, and hopefully we'll have a really nice discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. And our final panelist is Samanthamita. Also representing UC Hastings, she's a rising 2L. Prior to attending law school, Samantha was the Vice President of Technology at a public charter school district based in Los Angeles. Samantha attended the University of Pennsylvania, where she graduated with a BAS in Communication Systems Engineering and a BA in Communications. She also received a Master's of Communication Management from the University of Southern California. In her free time, Samantha enjoys traveling the world in search of good food or spending time relaxing back home in Hawaii.
Thank you so much, Kerry and AABA. I'm really excited to be here, and I hope I can give you all some helpful words of advice.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Samantha. Okay, so now we're all introduced to each other. Let's go ahead and get started on our discussion on all things law school. So as we know, we have UC Hastings strongly represented. I will do my best to represent UC Davis, and we'll just have a very good perspective on the various paths to law school. If you have questions during the panel, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will get to answering questions towards the end. So to first start off, Samantha is our current law student. I'm also a law student at the moment. I'm a 3L. And so we're gonna just kind of discuss our paths to law school, but also I would welcome Thomas and Mario to also discuss their paths to law school, even though it may have been a little while ago. But to start off, Samantha, I would ask about like the applying to law school process. And how sure were you about being a lawyer when you were in high school or college?
Well, I am a little bit of an older law student. I graduated from college in 2007, so I think it's fair to say that I was not super sure that I wanted to be a lawyer when I was in high school and college. It had always been kind of in the back of my mind, but as I went through my high school and my college careers, it just wasn't the right time yet. I had a career. I worked for about a decade, and I had climbed up the career ladder there pretty much as far as the ladder would go. And at some point, I was no longer learning, and that's when I decided, you know, it's time to pivot. Let's see what else there is out there. Law school sounds great. I love problem solving. I love the critical thinking element. And I just thought, you know, now's the time. And so here I am. And it's been wonderful. And I think the fact that I'm here can tell all of you that no matter how old you are or where you are in your career trajectory, your school trajectory, you can come back to law school anytime. You can do it.
That's awesome, Samantha. Thank you for that. Actually, so this is a surprise to me also, but we are pretty similar in that we're older law students. I also took quite a bit of time off between college and law school because similarly, I kind of was always interested in the law and wanted to be a lawyer, but at the same time, I wanted to explore other paths and make sure it was the right career for me. So I guess you could say it was always a dream of mine for sure. I just wasn't sure if it was really the path for me. So I took some time to also consider that. So Thomas, how about your path? How sure were you when you were a high school or college student that you wanted to attend school?
So not at all. You know, it's sort of in the back of my mind for a lot of folks, I think, you know, in high school that, you know, maybe law school is an interesting kind of career path. But I have to be quite honest that it wasn't until my junior year of college ended and I realized, wait, I'm going to have to start applying for jobs or start studying for the LSAT. What do I want to do? And I said, you know what? I don't really want to start applying for jobs now. Why don't I take the LSAT instead? That is not the path I would recommend for a lot of folks. I think that I got kind of lucky in that once I got into law school, I really enjoyed the work that I did, and not with the work that I thought that I would end up doing, by the way, just so you all know. My path really changed while I was in law school. So in that sense, I did get lucky, but I don't think my tale is a really an exemplary one. I think folks that law school it's very rewarding, but it's a commitment, a financial, time and resources commitment. So following my path might not be the best way. But that's how I ended up in law school. I went in thinking that I wanted to do international law. That changed very, very quickly as I realized that what I was more suited to was really towards legal services and working with clients rather than working with these kind of big sort of, vague, corporations or organizations or whatnot. So that's how I ended up working there. So that was my path. It was not, it's not the most romantic or like, Oscar-worthy sort of path, but that's sort of how it ended up. And again, I got pretty lucky in that I really enjoyed all the stuff that I did.
Great, thank you, Thomas. And how about you, Mario? Were you pretty sure when you were younger before law school that you wanted to be a lawyer?
No, not at all. I wanted to be a lot of things: a bus driver, a sportscaster, a bunch of stuff. And so I'd worked in financial services for a while, and it was at the point 3.5 years after undergrad where I was, okay, do I go to business school or do I go to law school? Ultimately, my passion for current events and how the law impacts each and every one of us every day, that's what led me to go to law school.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I did mention which universities everyone attended, just to sort of go back to that time. I think it feels like a long time ago for all of us. So if you could just repeat again what college you attended and what was your major, and do you feel like that major helped you when you applied for law school, and or was there anything else in terms of extracurriculars that you were doing in high school or college that you think made you more competitive for law school admissions? And I'll go ahead and start off with Samantha again.
So I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I dual degreed in communication systems engineering as well as communications. I also got my master's in communications management. And honestly, I'm not sure if any of my degrees have helped me get into law school. I'd like to say maybe, I'm here, I got here. So I'm sure it was meaningful in my path. But am I using any of those skills? Not really, if I'm being honest. I would also say, it's been so long since I was in school that it's hard for me to really tell if what I did in college really helped me get into law school at this point when I have, a bit of career experience. So not really that helpful, but I think that tells you guys, hopefully, you can probably major in anything and it'll be useful. I definitely have classmates who are clearly econ majors. They're bringing in these wonderful econ concepts into the law in class and are applying these things brilliantly. So I think no matter what you major in, it'll be really useful. Just find something you're interested in and it will give you perspective to bring into the classroom that other students won't have. And I think that can set you apart and make you really a compelling candidate for law school.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's right. I would agree with you that honestly, any major is pretty, it'll set you up to go to law school. There might be some majors that are a little bit different and have a more specialized path, such as, engineering or math, things like that. But generally, I think that as long as you did something that you felt passionate about and performed fairly well in college, that's going to set you up for law school applications as well. So moving beyond that process, once you get over all the initial hump of the LSAT and the application process, what was your process for choosing which law school to go to? And I'll go ahead and start with Mario on this one.
Yeah. For me, first and foremost, a school that I knew was going to give me a strong legal education. At the end of the day, you're making a big investment, both in yourself and in your career moving forward. So to me, academics was number one. Two, career opportunities. I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I was going to have career opportunities, whether I wanted to stay in the Bay Area or whether I wanted to go down to Southern California or elsewhere. And third, I am from the Bay Area, very proud of it. I didn't want to stay home, close to family. So those were the three main factors that I went through in deciding to choose a law school.
Awesome. And how about you, Thomas? What was your process for deciding where to go?
I mean, pretty similar to Mario, quite honestly. It's a little bit different when selecting college versus selecting a law school because it is such a specialized program. And sometimes some of the research you want to do might be based off, the career choices that you might want to make. I know that because I really focused on, international law while going into law school. I really want to make sure that the law school that I went to had, if not a really great an international law program, at least, a pretty strong one where I could feel like I could gain the education that I needed. I wasn't so tied to a geographic area. I'm from LA originally, which I know is not the most popular city to be from in the Bay Area, but I've been to Cal, so I was pretty much good all over California. I wanted to kind of try some different places, so I was totally okay with the East Coast. I'll be honest in that I did not expect to get admission into Harvard. So when they came knocking, I was like, well, I guess throw everything else sort of out the window, because it was a place that gave me the financial aid that I needed. And it's I don't it's the name, it's tough to turn it down. I will say this though, it's don't just be blinded by the name. As great of an experience as I had, as wonderful resources that they had, and the greatest education as it got, I don't know that it was exponentially better or even that much better at all than you would get at a place like Hastings, at Davis, at Stanford, at Texas. So I think what Mario said is really, really important. Sure, the name, the tier, the ranking of the school is important, but what's also important is that you're in a geographic area that you feel comfortable in, that you're in a program and you're with other like-minded students that you feel comfortable with. So those things all really come into consideration. And, I also want to end just by saying debt is unfortunately a consideration to take into. So sometimes the financial aid package that you receive can go a long way to determining where you decide to go. And that is completely okay. Don't feel like you're shorting yourself by saying, well, financial considerations are what's going to make me change my mind or change my decision on this.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. And how about you, Samantha? How did you end up at Hastings?
Sure. I just want to go off of what Thomas just said. I think one of the best pieces of advice I can think of is just go to the best school you can afford. I think that that's really it's pragmatic advice, but this is the real world, and these are things that you have to take into account. That being said, I knew that I wanted to stay in California. I knew I wanted to work in California, and so I only applied to schools in California because I knew I'd have to take the California State Bar at the end, and I wanted to be able, to study for this terrible thing that everyone tells you about with my classmates and friends, and not doing it, on my own if I had gone to a school outside of California. So that was really important to me. So I only applied to schools in LA and San Francisco. And then based on the very generous scholarship that I got from Hastings, that made a huge difference for my choice, as well as Hastings has an amazing network. Mario talked a lot about career opportunities. And I think taking into account the network that a school has is really important, and that really has a direct effect on your ability to get a job after law school. So that's how I ended up at Hastings.
Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, I want to go ahead and echo all the points everyone made. First and foremost, academic excellence is, that's the reason that you're going to law school, is to learn how to be a lawyer and how to read the law. So a place that has strong reputation for academic excellence is a primary factor. But also, as Samantha said, this is the real world. A law school education is not cheap. So it's very important to also consider the financial aid packages that you're receiving and the scholarships, and seeing if it's something that makes a difference for you. Personally, for me, the geographic location was also very important. I'm from the Bay Area. I wanted to stay in NorCal. I did apply to some schools in SoCal because my parents are from there, and I figured okay, I can make that work. But I knew that I wanted to work in the Bay Area after graduation, so it just made the most sense for me to stay close by here as well. So we touched on this a little bit, but I would like to go back to it a little bit more on how did you finance law school? Did you have any scholarships entering? Did you apply for more while you were in law school? And what else did you do to make money and stay afloat during this time? So Thomas, how about you? Let's start with you.
Sure, and I have kind of two perspectives on this. One as a kind of a student, kind of going through all that, and now as an associate director in the career development office and seeing some of the opportunities out there. I have both of those. So first thing I'd say, of course, is just on the initial question is what sort of financially paid package are you receiving from your law school, right? And I would encourage y'all to take a very close look at it. It can be extremely daunting You don't understand half the financial stuff that's thrown your way. And you don't have to understand every single little detail, but knowing sort of the general of what does it mean if I take this type of loan? What does it mean if I take this type of loan versus this type of grant or something like that, I think can be very, very important. So just on a threshold level, make sure you're keep track of that. During law school, I mean, there are a few things. Housing was an important deal to me. Living in the dorms is not always the best thing to do. Being surrounded by a bunch of other stressed out law students sometimes is not the best environment to be in. But I'd say on number one, it is certainly more cost effective sometimes. But number two, that level of camaraderie sometimes is great. Sometimes it's annoying being around other law students. Sometimes being with like 10 other people being, hey, we got to buckle down and study for this torts exam. What are we going to do about this? Sometimes that can be a really, really great feeling as well. So to me, I'd say the tuition and the housing are two really big expenses. From a career development office perspective, I'd say there's a lot of financial opportunities out there, whether it's a summer grant or a loan for working in an unpaid position, whether it's getting a job with a firm that pays you over the summer. Tons of schools have lots of different types of financial aid that might not be readily apparent. For example, at Hastings, we have a program called Lawyers for America, where you apply the end of your 2L year to work with certain organizations during your 3L year and for a full year after you graduate. Not only are you getting paid by that organization while you work for them, but you also get up to a $20,000 tuition waiver. Right? So these are things that you can do during law school to help with that financial burden by taking things that help you with debt forgiveness, grants or loans or some things like that during the school year. So I'd say a big thing is to really look at all the opportunities your school has internally as well.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for that inside perspective. How about you, Mario? How did you finance law school?
Yeah, I pretty much did it on loans, quite frankly. So when I applied to law school, it was fall of 2012. It was a different world to what law school applications and financial aid and scholarships is today. It's a much better world today. So my advice to all of you, is to submit the best applications that you can. So if you're still in undergrad right now, keep on working hard, even if this is your last weeks for some of you. Keep on working hard. When it comes to whether taking the LSAT or GRE, give it all you can. It is an investment not only into the law school of your choice trying to get in, but also on the financial aspect of it. And apply to, there's so many scholarships nowadays, both internally and externally. Take advantage of those scholarships. Fortunately, I'm in a situation, where I manage my money right. I make my monthly student loan payment. I take advantage of some of the federal public loan forgiveness programs that are available. So I'm thankful for the programs that are out there. But my advice to all of you, apply to scholarships.
Thank you, Mario. And how about you, Samantha? I think you mentioned that Hastings had given you a generous scholarship. Was that a big factor in your decision?
Absolutely. That was a very big factor. I will also say I was in a little bit of a unique position where I had worked for quite a while, and I knew I basically gave notice to my job a year in advance because I knew I wanted to go to law school. So that year I saved a lot. I did not do a lot of things, and I just saved and saved and saved. And because I knew I had made a budget for myself for the 3 years of law school, not including a scholarship. And so I had prepared to be able to do that, plus loans, obviously, on my own. And that was just something I'd prepared for. It was kind of like I took my savings, even from my childhood, is either going to be a down payment for a home or law school. And I obviously chose to go to law school. So it'll be a while before I own property, especially here in San Francisco. But I'm sure it'll happen one day. And yeah, again, scholarship made a huge difference. And like Mario said, I think your scores, your LSAT scores, your grades, all of those things can really be a compelling way for you to get scholarships from lots of places. And I will say Hastings has done a really wonderful job of putting all of the scholarships available that they know about in one place. We have like a scholarship bank. And I think the school is also really good about telling us about scholarships in like a weekly newsletter. I will also say, affinity groups and clubs are also really good about sharing that information as well. There's a lot of opportunities out there. You just have to find them and apply.
Thank you, Samantha. I'll echo what you said. I also very much, the price of law school was quite daunting to me. And I would say it was actually a major factor in why I didn't go for so long, because I took out some loans for undergrad. And so I actually had the experience of having to make that payment every month. And I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, I don't like this. I want to save my money. I want to use it for other things. So I did have that experience. And when I decided I wanted to go to law school, I sort of thought, like, I want to do this for as close to free as possible. I haven't quite been able to do that, but I did also receive a generous scholarship from UC Davis, which was a major reason why I went. Similar to Hastings, Davis has other scholarships for like particular affinity groups. I think that if you perform very well in your first year, they'll offer an additional scholarship. I think that's kind of like a retention scholarship. So just kind of as a note, like if you're in high school or college and you're thinking about applying to law school, this is probably one of the first major negotiations you'll be doing in your legal career, is negotiating between schools about how much money they can give to support you in your tuition and during your career. And also similar to Samantha, I had worked for a long time, so I had some savings, which I'm burning through now, but hopefully we'll be able to make it back soon. Okay, so we also touched on this a little bit. 3 of us, we did take some time off between college and law school, and then Thomas has the perspective of going straight through. So with that, would you recommend taking time off between schools? And do you think there's, a particular time, 1, 3 years, 10 years, that is sort of the sweet spot for doing that? Samantha, how about we go back to you for that?
Sure. I took a while. I don't think it's necessarily right for everyone. I think taking time off can give you life experience and perspective, which I found very helpful in law school. I also think, if you want to go straight through, if you want to do the KJD route, that's also really totally fine. If that's, you already know, I mean, you all are here as high schoolers and college students already wanting to get to know how to be successful in this path. And so I think that's also fine. I will say, if you do take time off, I think make it meaningful. You can't just take a year off and, play around, do something like just something unproductive. I think as long as you do something and have a story to tell about why you took this time off, I think then it's totally fine.
Great, thank you. And how about you, Mario?
Very similar to what Samantha said. Everything that she said, absolutely agree. I think it's a personal decision, right? And you have to assess where you are in your life and whether you're willing to commit 125% to begin with, of your 1L, 2L, 3L year. If you're not 100% committed, take the time, work, gain some professional skills and personal skills, and then make the decision. For me, I took 5 years in between undergrad and law school. For me, it was important that I took that time to work, to explore certain things professionally, and then to be ready for law school. So it's an individual decision, and you have to just listen to yourself and see what is the best option.
Great, thank you. And Thomas, how about you? What are your thoughts on it, having done the K through JD thing? Would you recommend taking time off, or?
I actually would. Maybe because I'm the only one that didn't. I went straight to college through law school, which we call a K through JD. Again, I do echo what they say. It's a personal choice, right? I'm not saying for someone who doesn't want to take some time off and wants to jump into law school, hey, by all means, go for it. But as Mario said, if you're unsure, even in the slightest, it's a huge commitment and decision to make. And taking some time off to sort of see where you're at personally and professionally. As Samantha said, doing something productive. I really felt like, again, this is different from person to person, but I honestly felt like I was sort of at a disadvantage for sort of my classmates who had done work, because they could point to their resume during job application season to say, I've had success professionally at these places already. You don't have to train me to be a professional or know how to work in a legal office or something like that. So while I don't feel it was a huge disadvantage, I felt like I had a pretty good career coming out of it. And also my friends who went straight through did get those opportunities as well. I felt like the path was a little bit easier for those folks because they had the advantage of having that experience, But they sort of knew themselves a little bit more. They knew, hey, I don't like to do work in this method. This is how I like to do it. Hey, this is something that I really enjoy doing this way. So I know professionally, I'm looking for an organization that will do that for me. Not just from a career development perspective, but I just felt from a maturity perspective, those folks just had a better angle on what they were looking for from jobs. They sort of knew a little bit more about how to interact with supervisors and things like that. So I'll say this: if you're on the fence, I say take some time off. But as Samantha said, it's got to be productive. You can't just sit on your butt and say, "Oh yeah, I'll get to those applications later." It's no, I want to be volunteering somewhere. I want to be working somewhere. Maybe doing something like going abroad to the Peace Corps or something like that. Really taking the time to really discover yourself. And while I'm not an old person, I'm a little bit older from a high school or college student. And I say, you have so little time as you grow up. As a 36-year-old now, I'm like, the things I could have done when I was 22 or 23, I can't do that stuff anymore because I don't have either the time or the energy. You have the time or the energy as folks in your early to mid 20s. Go and do those things that you want to do. Law school can wait. It will always be there.
Thank you for that, Thomas. I actually agree with Thomas. I would recommend taking time off between college and law school. Again, it's a personal choice. If you have known since like day one on this earth that you want to be a lawyer and that's your path, more power to you. Just go straight through, get that JD, with that amount of passion and like dedication and focus, like I'm sure it will be a very successful path. And actually, a lot of the students in my school, in my section, in my cohort who did go straight through, they have been very successful in getting, really good jobs out of OCI, getting the clerkships, things like that. So in a way, I very much admire students who know and are committed, even while in high school or college, that they know they want to be a lawyer because it calls to them immediately and they don't doubt that. And it leads to them being very dedicated in law school as well. But again, like, I think if you're even just wondering, like, what else is out there? Like, what else do I want to experience? It is a good idea to take, I think, a couple years off. I do think that having work experience helped me a lot in OCIs and job applications, mainly because the first time I was doing a job interview in my life was not like some high stakes environment where I was like, oh my gosh, like I really, really want this job and it's super competitive. Like I already had some experience just doing job interviews. And so I could already rely on that. So I think that is really helpful as well. And again, for me at least, I wasn't entirely sure. So it helped me focus and understand what it was that I was going to law school for, like what types of law was I interested in, and allowed me to apply myself in those areas in particular. So yeah, also just on the path to law school, I would ask if anyone had a mentor who was an attorney and how you got introduced to them, how they helped you consider law school, and how they helped you in your application process or maybe even during law school. Samantha, I'll start with you.
I actually don't have an attorney mentor, so my answer is pretty short. I wish I had one because I feel like there are a lot of things that, you would think from someone who, quit her job and changed careers that I would have done more research. But in this first year, I found out there was a lot that I didn't know and didn't think of. The number of practice areas available in the law is astounding. And I feel like if I had an attorney mentor, that would have been something that maybe I would have found out about a little bit earlier.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Mario?
100% same as Samantha. I did not have an attorney mentor. And there are things, quite frankly, that as a 1L, if you do not have a mentor or the first in your family to be a lawyer, there's just things you don't know, right? And part of that is, there's a lot of unwritten rules sometimes to law school and stuff like that in the process to it. And so my recommendation, if you're at all thinking of going to law school, one, get an internship at a law firm or any type of legal entity, just see how it is. And two, if possible, try to get a mentor, someone that's a lawyer as you're going through the process of deliberating whether to go to law school or through the application process. And definitely once you're in law school, to absolutely, and Thomas can talk about this, to get an alumni mentor or someone that can guide you through, that's gone through law school already and knows the profession.
Thank you. And Thomas, how about you?
Yeah, it's it's kind of sad in that I think all three of us did not really have a mentor. So I'll say this, and I didn't have a mentor, per se, kind of like, the old wise person that knows all these things that can consult with every single time. I think what really worked for me was the strong networking community that you're going to be dealing with, right? Maybe a family friend who was an attorney. As one thing is that I don't know about a lot of folks here, but I think Mario said this. I was the first in my family to go to law school. So those kind of unwritten rules that Mario was talking about. Oh yeah, the minute I stepped foot, I was like, wait, there's a lot of stuff here I didn't realize that's kind of going on in the background that I have to get in tune with. So talking with a lot of different people sometimes is a good thing as well. Professors, alumni, older students, family friends who might have been lawyers. Because I also say this: if anyone goes up to you and says, "Oh, if you're going to law school, you must do X, Y, and Z," they're probably wrong. There's no one right way to do law school. It is very much a personalized experience. So, while getting a mentor is great. Finding someone that you know and you trust and you go to and talk about things is awesome. It's also not something I think works out for every single person. I think making those networking connections and having a lot of different people across different kind of spectrums to talk with, and it can be important as well. But I really can't emphasize what Samantha and Mario just said. There's a lot of stuff to learn about law school and the legal profession that someone who's not in the legal profession really can't tell you, which is kind of annoying and sucks, but that's just kind of the name of the game. You don't really know what you're getting yourself into sometimes until you're actually kind of knee deep in it.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I personally worked in law firms before law school. I worked as a paralegal, and then I got kind of tired of being a paralegal, and I switched to like a business and operations role at a startup, but it was still actually within legal services. And so I had the opportunity to meet a lot of attorneys and speak with them about their practices, help them out, actually see what the day-to-day life was like. So that really helped me out in my path to law school. I was lucky to find a mentor who has been very helpful to me, has been very supportive, and he's someone that I've turned to throughout the process as I was applying to law school. He's actually my former boss, and so we had worked together and got to know each other that way. I do think good mentorship relationships actually are very much like friendships. You don't, it's hard to just go up to someone and be like, I admire you. Can you please be my mentor? But if a relationship or a friendship or a working relationship develops organically and you just kind of enjoy each other's company and, you can trust each other and work together and they're in a role that can advise you, I definitely encourage people to try to develop that further. And to echo what everyone said, I do think that schools are getting a lot better with recognizing the disadvantages that first generation lawyers do face when they enter. I know Davis has like a first generation group where they pair 1Ls with mentor professors who kind of guide them along and try to give them those inside tips. But I can see how it really creates that disadvantage. And I'm glad that there are some schools who are trying to equalize that. For me, at least, when I was starting law school, one thing that I remember my mentor told me was, start outlining your first week. And I was like, are you crazy? Like that, no one's doing that. Like they're going to think I'm insane. He's like, no, you should do it. You should start your first week because even a month in, you're going to be overwhelmed. So it's just really little things like that. So if you have any way to get involved in the legal community, volunteering, an internship, taking a legal assistant job, I really encourage that.
I wanted to sorry, Kerry, if I could just interrupt real quick. So there is a program at UC Hastings very similar to what you described at Davis called Leop for exactly those things, right? Folks that are first generation professionals, possibly even the first from their family to go into college at all, to really kind of connect with this network of folks who may not have that kind of deeper understanding of sort of like the weird kind of intricacies of law school and the law. So I'd say there's a really big community out there, folks like you, who may not really understand what law school is. There's no shame or guilt at all about it. It's a skill that honestly you just have to learn. So as Mario said, going out there and getting those internships, because one thing I did want to say is that law school might not be for you. And sometimes you might not know that till you do an internship at a law firm or a legal service and realize, wait a second, I actually don't want to do this, right? So getting that experience, whatever it might be, a law firm, legal services, working for the court, working for a small private firm, I think is a really, really good thing to do to really understand. And that's a really good way to get a mentor as well, to see, hey, if these folks can help me with these questions that I have, getting that knowledge before you go into law school can be a good thing as well.
Thank you, Thomas. And I just wanted to note also that some colleges, some undergrad campuses do have mentorship and shadowing programs. I really encourage you to reach out to your career services office and say, is there an alumni who's a lawyer who would want to meet with me or something similar? That can be the start to a mentorship relationship as well. I also wanted to note that actually AABA offers these mentorship programs. I've benefited from them personally. I've been matched with mentors who I've chatted with over the years and have been able to help me, apply for jobs and things like that. So once you actually enter law school and are a student, you can definitely connect with AABA and participate in our mentorship program. So I do know we're running short on time. I'm just going to ask one more question for the panel, and then I'm going to take a look at the questions that everyone's been sending in. We've been getting some great questions. So I think the main thing that one thing that people are probably very curious about is, how is law school different from high school and college? And what is a typical week like for you, or was like for you in law school as opposed to high school and in college? Mario, let's go ahead with you.
Well, first of all, I wish PE was built into the schedule in law school. I very much enjoy that. So that's when it's very different. In many ways, you look at your class schedule and you say, oh, I only have 2 classes today, and the classes are only an hour to 2 hours each. I got all this extra time. No, you don't. You're in the library. You're reading your cases. You're case briefing. You're outlining. You're going to office hours, as a 2-hour thrill, you're working on journal, or you're on a competition team. These are all fun stuff too. You're not going to enjoy every single part of it, but these are things that you'll enjoy, especially things that you choose to do your 2nd and 3rd year. So I will say you need to be a lot more structured. You really have to be structured. You always hear time management, but if you don't have time management, it's going to be an unpleasant experience. But if you really sit down, you take the time to plan things through, it is completely doable. And so for me, the biggest difference between high school, college, and law school is just personal accountability. You really have to be on top of your things and to also ask questions. Don't be afraid to go to office hours, get to know your professors. You're going to have questions as a law student, and it's a great way to build professional relationships. They're going to help you write letters of recommendation for internships or for jobs. They're also going to expand their network. They're going to leverage their network to you once you build those relationships. So for me, those were the big differences.
Thank you so much. So Thomas, unless you have anything to add, I'm going to go ahead and jump in with the questions that the students have been sending us. Okay, great. So one of the first questions that was asked was a concern about automation, the robots taking over the world. One of the things that I've heard from current lawyers and others is that there is a major concern about automation and how much of the legal field is susceptible to that. Would love to hear thoughts on that.
I'll start. Perhaps in in specific fields there is that concern. I can certainly tell you in government and in public interest, the practice areas I was in, there's not a lot you can automate anymore. The fact that, especially in legal services, listen, the client has to come in. You have to talk with the client. You have to get the information from your client. It's not something that can just simply be emailed in or automated on an intake. I think one of the most difficult things that a lot of nonprofits have actually is getting a good intake done. If you're not able to spot all of the correct issues and ask the right follow-up questions in very unique circumstances, you're not going to get the right information that you need. So perhaps someone with a bit more of a firm background could speak to it, but I can certainly tell you from government and nonprofit anyway. I mean, there's a reason why we're also using fax machines, really, because the legal industry just cannot modernize itself. There's been a huge battle over, can we even continue doing online hearings? Can we continue doing e-discovery? All these issues are still popping up. So I think it's a concern, but I don't think it's one we have to really be worried about, the robots are coming for a job. The reason that, you need a human lawyer in there is to be able to react to unique situations and have the knowledge to spot those correct issues and follow up on it. I just really don't see a machine being able to do that, at least in the near future.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I would echo that. I've heard this concern a lot, especially when I was a paralegal. There are a lot of rote tasks, being a lawyer. You have to do a lot of repetitive work. However, the real work of being an attorney is in the critical thinking. And you just can't, I think you just can't train a robot or some automatic machine to really do that critical thinking and pinpointed research. So for our next question, I'm going to direct this one at Samantha because she's in school and has gone through the LSAT process more recently. So how many hours a week do you spend on your schoolwork? And also as a side question, how long did you take to study for the LSAT?
Okay, so schoolwork, I would say, as Mario mentioned, you've got one class, two classes a day. And so for me, my classes range anywhere from 1.5 hours a day to at most 8 hours a day. And I would say for every single class meeting, it came with like 3 hours of reading. And that was for me personally. I'm not sure, Kerry, if that sounds about right to you.
Very similar. I think they say like 1 credit for 1 credit class, that's 1 hour of reading. So a 4 credit class will have 4 hours of reading for that class.
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't even sure if, am I on track? Am I doing the right thing? But that's what it's been for me. So, if a class meets 3 times a week, I've got 9 hours of reading for that class. And then I think Kerry mentioned this a little bit earlier about outlining. That is another thing that adds on. I tried to do it after each class that I took. So that was like 30 minutes right after every class. I take to, kind of synthesize my notes into a short outline of the class. And yeah, I feel like I spent most of my week doing reading or outlining or just trying to understand, the concepts that were in my case books. So it takes time. You don't have the free time that you might think you do when you see your schedule initially, as Mario mentioned. And then for the LSAT, because again, I'm a bit of an older student, I was worried I had forgotten how to learn. So I signed up for an LSAT prep class that was in person because I also felt like an online version or a version that you kind of just do on your own would not work for me. I thought I needed like the direct supervision of someone telling me, hey, this is what you need to do on this day. Here's your homework. Do it. And I needed that sort of very like rote schedule set out for me. So I took a prep class that lasted, I want to say, how long was that? Like 3 months, meeting every other day during the week for what was it, like maybe a couple hours. And I thought that was actually really helpful just to get, for me, my mind back into, hey, this is how you take a standardized test, because again, it had been like 13 years since I had taken one. So it was absolutely helpful for me to get back into that kind of mode of learning and test taking.
Thank you, Samantha. Mario, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, just study hard. Study hard and take as many practice tests as possible and under test conditions. Don't have Netflix on there. Oh, I'm just going to do 1 or 2 questions while I'm watching. No. You get the cell phone, you put it on airplane mode, you put the timer for the different sections, and you take the practice tests.
Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I actually self-studied for the LSAT, and I would not recommend it. If you do have the finances to take a prep course, I highly recommend that, because I ended up studying for like over a year for the LSAT because I was working full-time, and I was just like, it was hard for me to motivate myself to do that kind of work after a full day in the office. So I think if you're able to, taking a prep course is very helpful.
I'll just break in and say, make sure though to create space for yourself. If you walk into that test, just your mind is blown, you've been studying nonstop for like 3 straight weeks, not getting the right amount of sleep, eating the right kind of food, not taking a break, you're not going to do well in that test no matter how much you prepared for. So make sure that you feel like you're ready on a preparatory level for the test, but also from a physical, mental standpoint, that you're walking in there healthy to take that test.
Thank you, Thomas. So important to remember. Take care of yourself. Your mind and body are very connected. Okay, and so a couple people have asked, is there something that you could have done in high school that could have helped you in your path towards your career? Another person had a similar question about what are some activities that you can do as a rising junior in high school to show your passion for law?
I'll go ahead and jump in this one. no matter what stage you're at, whether you're in high school, college, a working professional, the one skill you can do and work on is your writing skills. Write, 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 no matter where you are. As lawyers, we're always writing and we're always perfecting our writing abilities. And that's one of the best things you can do to prepare for law school.
Thank you, Mario. Does anyone else have thoughts on what you can do in high school?
I'll say this is anything. And I'm not being glib. What I really mean is there's not one activity or group of activities that law schools say we want folks to be doing these, so we're going to look for these. That simply doesn't exist. What they want to see is the quality of the commitment you have to it, right? If you do like 10 like clubs and say I'm going to quickly go for an hour each semester to these things and have a list on my resume, it's not going to be good for, well, Mari can maybe help me out on this. It's not really great for admissions, and I can tell you certainly from a job perspective, from a careers perspective, it's not really helpful either. What people want to see is that you have a dedicated commitment to, a particular, field or interest. You took leadership opportunities in it. You were vice president or president of the club. You were a founder. You were the outreach chair or something like that. That you've shown that you've had the commitment to it. That's what folks want to see. So, and passion. Right? If you do something because you're like, well, I don't really like this, but I guess it'll look better on my resume, so I'll do it to get into law school. People pick up on that really, really fast. Do something that you enjoy. If you have the passion for it, that's what law schools want to see. Not that you've done something in particular, but that you have the passion, motivation, and commitment to be doing something in the long term.
Absolutely. Thank you, Thomas. I saw a couple questions on a subject that we had touched on earlier, so I'll just briefly recap that. There was a couple questions from Katie and Anya about what you can do to find someone to mentor you or shadow at a firm. Perhaps a school that you're going to doesn't have a formal mentorship program. And so some of the things we talked about was trying to find an internship at a law firm or in legal services, maybe in a public interest position. There's a lot of nonprofits that definitely need some legal support. Try to find an internship or a volunteer opportunity or maybe a part-time job opportunity while you're in school or maybe during the summer where you can start to get familiar with what legal work really is and meet some lawyers that way. And if you get into school and your school doesn't have a formal mentorship program, I mean, professors are your built-in mentors, actually. So I would encourage developing relationships with professors and asking them, do you know anyone who does this type of work that I want to do? Could I please chat with them and see if you can develop a relationship like that? In addition to that, there's affinity groups like AABA and just a lot of professional groups that have mentorship programs. So, there's a lot of lawyers, I think. So I think that if you apply a little bit of intention behind it, you can definitely develop a relationship with someone and find someone to give you advice and mentor. I've heard, and I think it's true, that lawyers love mentoring law students. I've at least experienced that personally.
Yeah, it's if I could just break in real quick, Kerry, it's 100% true. For those of you who are worried about, oh, I don't have a mentor, I'm not sure who to reach out to, my advice to you, and especially in a job context, is just reach out. Even if you don't really know that person, shoot them an email. The absolute worst thing that can happen is that they completely ignore you, which, stings the ego a little bit, but it's not such that big of a deal. In most cases, most lawyers would be absolutely love to speak with you if they have the time. Oh my gosh, this person wants my advice about what to do in law school, but how to get in. I would love to spend 10 or 15 minutes talking with them. So I'd say go for broke. Go ahead and email them. Go ahead and make that phone call. Go ahead and ask your mutual friend if they can meet up. Just do it. 9 times out of 10, you'll get that meeting and get some sort of good professional development out of it.
Thank you, Thomas. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the hour. I do want to thank everyone for attending and participating. There are a few more questions that we didn't quite get to. So I think a couple of us might take a look at them and type up some answers and hopefully circulate that. So with that being said, I want to thank the panelists. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Mario. It's been great to chat with you. And with that, I'll turn this back to Lee.
Thank you, Kerry, and thank you to our panel for your wonderful insight to everyone. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Kerry, and thank you to our panel for your wonderful insight to everyone. We hope you enjoyed today's panel. All 3 sessions have been recorded and will be posted on our website, AABA-bay.com/pathways. This concludes our 2021 Pathways to Law Conference. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful weekend.